But
down
I'm saying
our
your pub was still a going concern. That's my point.
It was.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Stay there, John Clark. And Johnny Moran is on the other line, 51551. What was the name of your pub, Johnny?
Well, the Blarney Inn on Nassau Street. I had a couple of places in Dublin.
And who took over your pub?
Well, yeah, unfortunately the way it worked was when the bank, Anglo Irish Bank, put in receivers, which was Ernst Young, their former auditors, which I had a big problem with from the start, that the firm of auditors who audited were my receivers. But moving away from that, when they put them in, they went in everywhere at once. I mean, my story is out of the blue, without any notice, as hard as it is to believe. I got a phone call from Anglo Irish Bank in the morning of the 17th of January asking me, did I get a letter? And I didn't know what the letter was. I was actually going around the premises picking up money to lodge into the bank, into my normal banks. And they said, you need to get the letter. When I got the letter was calling in my loans. And I rang the bank and asked for a meeting. They said they could only meet me at 3 o'clock. I went down to Anglo Irish Bank in Stephen's Green. I went upstairs. There was a security guard in reception, which I thought was a bit odd. But I went into the meeting and I asked what was it about. And to the long and the short of it, after the huffing and puffing, your man said, look, sorry, change of plan upstairs. Government owned the bank now. We're calling in your loans. And I said, what does that mean? And they said, we're appointing a receiver. I left Stephen's Green at 3 o'clock. I got back to it was actually the Holiday Inn premises on Pearse Street, which is also connected with the Blarney Inn. And the receivers arrived then shortly afterwards. So the procedure was very much, a complete takeout, no notice, and calling your loan in the morning for full repayment. No time limit to go to examinership, no options, and then in the afternoon receivership. What happens then, Joe, and I think I can understand why a lot of people don't understand this, because everybody's so preoccupied with the bigger crisis. What happens then is receiver comes in and says, I'm making you redundant. I'm basically made redundant. The other director's made redundant. No compensation, no holiday pay, not even what your basic employee entitlements would get. You're then in a situation where you're outside your business, you're outside your assets, you've no access to your cash flow, and then if you want to defend it, you've got to take them into court. Now, in my situation, and this is in the public domain, Joe, so I won't get you into any trouble. I know you have to be sensitive in RTE these times, but in my situation, they came in and they left me sitting in my office, but they told me they were going to make me redundant. And I noticed that they didn't work in the evenings and they didn't work weekends. Now, I had a pub, a nightclub, 2 hotels, and the management, the senior management, i.e. myself and the other director, were taken out of it. Staff were told to have no communication, no contact, no instructions if they wanted to stay. And so you're in a situation where you're isolated. So I decided to take back control, taking advantage of the fact that they didn't work in the evenings and they didn't work weekends. And weekends in my game was when you're at your business. So I locked them out. And within 24 hours, I was in the High Court. And then we got into an injunction. So I won't get into that.
Okay, but you had the Holiday Inn, Tantazoe's, which is well known in Temple Bar restaurant, Blarney Inn in Kildare Street, and Club Nassau, which was beside it. So
the home of the slow.
You were God, you were a big. But what do you do now, Johnny?
Well, actually, I'm doing a bit of volunteer counselling. But if I could just get back to what we're talking about, the thing about it is this. I'm not looking for sympathy. I mean, you're in business, you make money, you lose money. In my case, and in other cases, it's about transparency and about accountability and about equal treatment. I mean, my situation was, the Blarney Inn, for example, was fully up to date with its taxes and it was fully up to date with its creditors. The Holiday Inn was up to date with its taxes and up to date with its creditors. Now, the point is, they put in receivers. Straight away, the business is damaged, it's devalued. They put me out. By putting me out, they make the receivership process self-financing. But the bigger issue is they get control of the asset to sell. They then go and sell that asset cheaper. And then the point is, the taxpayer at the end of the day is the one who's taking a bath here, because I was quite prepared to pay back. I wasn't in a situation where I had anybody suing me or any problems. I had built up some arrears from 2009 to 2010 on one loan. I had 4 loans with Anglo, 3 were fully up to date. Because it was a group, they came in and they went into everything. Now, there was no thing about saying, well, look, we'll work with you or we leave you there, that's up to date and that's paying it. I had assets. I owned the freehold of the buildings in Pearse Street, so they were very saleable, albeit at a discount. Now, from a taxpayer point of view, and this is the bigger issue that isn't really, the people don't seem to realise when they hear these different stories like John Clark, I'd have a lot more confidence in Clark's in Irish Town being run by John Clark and his family, who've run it for 80 years or been in the pub game for 80 years, than I would in some receiver who knows nothing about the pub business. So at the end of the day, you have a situation where the bank are moving in, they're selling assets cheap, the taxpayer is bailing out the banks to the tune of 60-70 billion, and at the same time, like in my case, the bank are coming after you on personal guarantees, even though they've seized your assets. So it's going nowhere. It's all a big spin. And in my case, you're building up, the taxpayer is going to pick up the likes of Arthur Cox's legal fees, which will probably be 3, 4, 5 million. So what's going on doesn't make any sense. And behind that, whilst they pursue the owner, the business owner who's providing the jobs, et cetera, for the full amount, knowing they can't reclaim it, the banks are selling off the debt at 10% and 20% of its value. So something is clearly wrong. I mean, I was quite prepared to pay it back. I believe I could have paid it back if they'd worked with me. The bank was closing down and wanted their money, and they just moved in. And it's basically financial assassination. That's basically what's going on, you know.
Say there, John.